You won't believe what happened when an HOA president thought she could control land that wasn't even part of her neighborhood. She sent cops to my ranch, and that mistake cost her more than she ever imagined. Stick around till the end of this story because the twists will blow your mind, and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping real-life stories like this one. I never thought my quiet ranch life would be interrupted by the madness of a homeowners association I was never even part of. But one summer morning that all changed when I walked outside with a cup of coffee, enjoying the view of my horses grazing in the pasture, only to find two sheriff's cruisers parked at the end of my gravel driveway, their lights flickering as if I had committed some crime, and behind them was a furious woman in oversized sunglasses, clutching a clipboard like it was a sword of authority, and I had no idea that this moment was going to spiral into one of the most ridiculous, infuriating, and ultimately satisfying battles of my life. The woman introduced herself as Karen. Yes, her actual name was Karen, and she was the president of the HOA from the neighborhood a mile down the road, a neighborhood that stopped at the edge of Maple Creek, while my ranch sat on the opposite side of the creek, completely outside their jurisdiction. Yet she marched up my driveway like a conquering general and began shouting about unauthorized livestock, illegal fencing, and unapproved structures on her HOA's land, to which I laughed out loud and said, "Ma'am, this is private property, this is a ranch, not a subdivision, and you have absolutely no say here." But she wasn't used to being told no, and her face turned red as she declared she had already called the cops to enforce compliance. The deputies got out, clearly annoyed, and asked for my ID, which I provided, and as they looked at my deed and tax records I had ready in a folder, because rural folks like me know you always keep your paperwork straight, they quickly realized Karen had wasted their time, and one of them muttered, "Ma'am, this property isn't even in your HOA's boundaries, you have no jurisdiction here." But Karen wouldn't back down, insisting I was lying, claiming she had maps, and when she pulled out a hand-drawn sketch that looked like a child's crayon art with my ranch scribbled inside her neighborhood lines, the deputies could barely keep from laughing, yet they still had to file a report, since she had made the call. I thought that would be the end of it, but Karen wasn't done, far from it, because she saw my ranch as some sort of threat to her control, and over the next weeks she began escalating her campaign, sending me letters with wall letterhead demanding I pay back dues for 20 years, threatening to fine me for my barn color, and even showing up at my mailbox with other HOA board members, treating my land like it was theirs. I ignored her, but one morning I woke up to find a bright orange notice taped to my gate claiming my property was in violation and subject to lien, and that's when I realized she was playing a dangerous game, one that could have legal consequences if she tricked the county into believing her nonsense. So I hired a lawyer friend of mine, showed him the pile of letters, and he laughed so hard he nearly fell out of his chair, saying, "This woman is going to bankrupt her HOA if she keeps this up." Sure enough, the next twist came when I got another visit from the cops, but this time it was because Karen had claimed I was running an illegal business, accusing me of operating a commercial slaughterhouse without permits, which was absurd since I simply boarded a few horses and raised cattle for my family. But the county inspector still came out, looked around, and after 5 minutes declared, "There's nothing wrong here, this is a legitimate agricultural operation, you're exempt from HOA nonsense anyway." And I could see Karen's car idling on the road, her eyes burning with fury as she realized she couldn't win this round. But she didn't stop. In fact, she doubled down, and the real chaos began when she trespassed onto my land with a group of HOA board members and started taking photos of my house, my barn, even my kids' treehouse, all while shouting about evidence collection. So I had no choice but to call the sheriff myself, and when the deputies arrived, I pressed charges for trespassing, which left her sputtering and screaming that she was the authority here. Yet the deputies calmly led her off my land and gave her a warning, telling her that if she came back uninvited, she'd be arrested. That should have been enough to scare her, but Karen was not a woman who learned lessons. She was obsessed, driven by some bizarre need to control everyone around her, and so she began using the HOA's funds to launch a lawsuit against me, claiming my ranch was within their association boundaries, demanding I pay thousands in fines and dues. My lawyer and I responded by filing a countersuit for harassment, defamation, and abuse of authority, and here's where it gets juicy. In court, her entire case collapsed when the judge looked at the official county maps and said, "This property is not and has never been part of your HOA. and then turned to me and said, "Sir, would you like to pursue damages?" My lawyer smiled and said, "Absolutely, Your Honor," and suddenly the tables had turned. Karen's HOA was on the hook for my legal fees, lost time, and the stress she caused my family. The jury ate it up, especially after we produced the stack of threatening letters with her signature, the bogus orange violation notice, and testimony from the deputies who had been dragged out to my ranch on false calls. The verdict was a financial disaster for Karen's HOA. They were ordered to pay me nearly $75,000 in damages, plus all my attorney's fees, and the judge issued a restraining order against Karen, barring her from contacting me or stepping foot near my property. But here's the twist she never saw coming. When the HOA tried to cover the payout, the board members revolted, realizing Karen had been abusing her power, and they voted her out as president, leaving her with the humiliation of not only losing the case but also destroying her own reputation and standing in the community she once ruled with an iron fist. Yet even after all that, she tried one last desperate move. She went to the local newspaper, spinning a wild story about me being a dangerous rancher who bullied her and stole from the HOA. But when the paper investigated, they discovered the court documents and published the truth. That she had harassed a man who wasn't even under her authority, wasting taxpayer resources and HOA funds on a vendetta. The public backlash was brutal. She couldn't go to the grocery store without whispers, her husband left her, and eventually she had to sell her house and move out of the very neighborhood she once ruled. Meanwhile, I went back to enjoying my peaceful ranch life, knowing I had stood my ground against one of the most entitled, power-hungry people I'd ever met, and every time I ride past the creek that separates my land from that subdivision, I can't help but smile, remembering the day Karen sent cops to my ranch over rules that never applied to me and ended up paying the ultimate price for her arrogance, proving once and for all that sometimes the wildest, costliest mistake an HOA can make is picking a fight with the wrong cowboy.